Is he dead?
I sincerely hope so.
I'm back in my element. I'm back in my, if they don't want let them in. Gotta leave them all behind, I feel like a veteran. But I ain't even hit my, back in my element. Back in my element.
Four years of doing this as what could we call it, a hobby? Yeah, we'll go with that. 4 years of doing this. Yeah, I still make mistakes, of course. No one's perfect, seemingly, right? Anyway, hopefully we're going and we are cooking by gas. So, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are in this absolutely insane fucking world that we live in. Yikes. Where do you even begin? Anybody? The beginning. We know, but we don't know where that is either. The beginning. The Big Bang. Of course, the Big Bang. The Big Bang Theory. And you know it's true because it comes from a genuine source, which is NASA. Of course, yeah. Who else would it be? And you can trust NASA. Yeah. I think what are we talking now? 65 years, I think. NASA have been established as NASA. And for 65 long, crazy, mental years, I shouldn't laugh, but they have been fleecing the American public to no end whatsoever. The only other bigger criminal entity in America, in my own view, outside of NASA, would be the American government itself. And what a monster that is. Indeed, right? So, I hope everyone's doing okay. Tonight, some people might have heard of this. I only heard of it this week. Was it this week or last week? Thanks to a listener on the Richie Allen show. So they posted a comment to a different 3 or 4 different articles, which led us to the list, which contains mysterious deaths of scientists and also microbiologists. So we'll look at the list, but in particular, we're looking at the Marconi and General Electric employees in particular tonight. So basically tonight, I think we will do a part 2 because it's quite extensive. And again, hey, I'm not a professional at anything whatsoever. A professional at nothing. That's what I'm professional at. So yeah, I guess that's something, right? But we like to look into it. We like to cover it as best as we can. So we'll look at a few different things, and I mean, not much of it is going to come as a big surprise to many people here. I totally get that. Some people, I would imagine, definitely already know about this particular case going back to the 1980s. Well, between 1980, let's say, and 1990 in particular. So some of you might know about it, but we're going to look into it. And kind of tonight, I guess we're going to be touching base and getting a good idea of who are the companies that are involved, basically, and what sort of what sort of deaths are we looking at, right? So, in particular, a lot of them are put down to suicide, shock horror. And I have looked at some of them already. Again, this is new to me. I only found out about this recently, so it's all relatively new to me. A lot of you will know a lot more than me, shock horror. But from what I can gather, there could be multiple, let's say, culprits. There could be multiple. So what I want to do tonight is touch base on the theory of well, they're calling it a theory, but when you look at it from afar, I mean, we'll get into conclusions, but when you look at it from afar, I mean, yeah, it's very dodgy. And it's still, as far as I'm aware, still to this day, there's not been any investigation into it. All these suspicious deaths that seemingly are not linked in any way. And when you know a wee bit about how the Secret Service, the intelligence service work, a lot of the time they'll leave calling cards. They can't help themselves, I don't think. They're addicted to killing these people who do these sort of jobs, I'd imagine. So you can tell straight away who it was. And of course, yeah, they put it down to suicide. And it's clearly not. And we've got many cases of this in a single decade. I mean, it's quite astonishing to think that. I mean, it did reach the mainstream media, but it's astonishing to think that nothing else happened about it. And of course, when you're dealing with gigantic entities, yeah, they don't mess about. And I kind of touched on it before when we talked a wee bit about Russell Brand. If anybody's going to get in the way, they won't last very long. I can guarantee you that 100%. They will not risk anything whatsoever. In fact, they take you out. They would take you out even if they thought there was any risk. To save any hassle in the future, you would be nothing to these entities. We're simply not. You wouldn't last very long. And I mean, that's dealing, when we're talking about these deaths in particular, we're talking about a company which basically became BAE, or is it BEA? BA? But we're talking about a company that it was quite big, in its prime at least, involved in dodgy stuff in the sense of military technology. So if you work for them, let's say, and you knew too much, they would probably take you out because they wouldn't risk it getting lost, or you eventually sometime in your life, let's say, went downhill and you sold off information. So they have squads of people to take you out. I mean, when you're talking about gigantic companies, you can pretty much guarantee that. But when the government is involved in entities like DARPA or NATO, you can definitely be guaranteed that if you cross the line, or even if they think you're going to cross the line, even if they get a sniff of it, tiny little sniff that there might be in the future a chance of you opening your mouth, they will take you out. No two ways about it, guaranteed. And this is in particular companies. Imagine if you crossed the path or stepped on the toe of Big Pharma or the American government or the British government, you would not see the day out. You wouldn't. So when you get entities like Russell Brand claiming this, that, and the next thing and revolutions, do not fucking buy it. No way. The guy would not last 2 seconds. Guaranteed. So do not fall for that BS. There is no knight in shining armor. The only hero at the end of the day, the only one that it can be, is you. That's it. Straight up. It won't be Russell Brand. It won't be anybody insert name apart from you and you only as an individual. At least that's my take on that, at least, right? So what we'll do is before I lose my place completely, nothing new there, right? So I'm actually at the moment on holiday. Student life, right? It's great. I feel like I just started and I'm on holiday already. Wow. I mean, honestly, I feel like, wait, what? It's holiday already? Of course, I've got quite a bit of work to do with that being said, because I don't want to fall behind, right? I'm not doing it. I'm not falling behind. So when I've got time, and we have got a few different bits to get into, some interesting stuff coming up. So tonight I thought it would be a wee bit different, but it's kind of not, because because it's still grim. It's still sort of agenda, hidden hand related, global, international government that seems to run the world, right? I mean, it's clear as day. Presidents, they come and go. Agendas, they stay. They don't go anywhere. And talking about NASA, I was watching a NASA thing today, and it was during the Apollo program, and one of the journalists asked, "Oh, are you worried?" The journalist asked, I think it was an astronaut or someone part of the Apollo program. He said, "Oh, are you worried about the general election and the next president, if it's a new president, getting rid of the NASA program?" See, they were a bit worried. Well, what if someone else comes in? But little did they know, it might be in America, but it's not their program. Far from it. It is the program of the hidden hand, guaranteed. And no matter who came in and out of that door, it was going to stay there. It was going to take billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, still to this day, taking money. No matter who, the space program was deemed of major importance, right? Yeah, cool. Sure, let's go with that. So what we'll do is we'll get a sound check, and we'll say hello, all right? And then what I'll do is I'll kind of introduce you to the I guess we're going to call it a theory for the time being. We'll go with that for the time being, right? We can only take it all with a pinch of salt, remember, right? We don't we can't take anything for granted. So we'll jump in the chat, we'll say hello, and then we'll look at a wee bit. I'll introduce you to what we're going to talk about, but basically, before we get into some of the ins and outs, we might watch it's a kind of, I don't know if you could call it a short documentary from 1989 on this particular incident, and it was aired on ABC News on a segment in what is called, if I'm remembering this off the top of my head, 2020, which must have been on ABC Network. Did anyone used to watch that in the 80s? Anybody? Probably not, right? Better things to do. And I think that it's worth watching because it kind of compresses in 15 minutes or so. I think maybe 15, yeah. What would maybe take me about an hour to explain, or 2 or 3 or 4. So we can, if we watch that as well, it gives you a lowdown of, in particular, the Marconi British individuals who seemingly committed suicide or was unknown. And I mean, it is absolutely astonishing, man. Honest to God. It would not matter who you are. If they deem you a risk, you will be finished. Straight up. If they let you go, you could be of use to them, right? To an extent. But in my own personal view, if you get in the way, or if you grow a big following, let's say, like, even for example, David Icke. If David was to get it really genuinely get in the way, then they might, yeah, that might be the end of that, basically. And hey, let's be honest here. The jury's kind of still out on that. He's still here. But in my own view, again, going by especially the past maybe 5 to 10 years, people are waking up. Yeah, no two ways about it. But it could be too little, too late, because the people are not only waking up, they want people to waken up now. Oh, yes, they do. I can pretty much guarantee that. And you can see it when yeah. I mean, I could be wrong. There is that side to it, right? But I reckon now they want people to push back. They want the fight. They want to take the fight to us. So if that is the case, a lot of stuff is going to come out, and well, it has already, but even more so in the future. And it's going to point to terrible, terrible atrocities committed by individuals, probably in the government and in the scientific world. Because I know they're predicting state collapse, government collapse, and a hatred, a pushback against what they call science. So all that's kind of to come out. And if you look at the political stage across NATO stan, it's in free fall at the moment. And I mean, what do? They offer up the solution, right? So they cause complete chaos. They want people to fight back. People demand a solution. Look for a leader. And the solution will likely be a one world sort of, I don't know, Hunger Games order. And it's hard to imagine if you try and think what the world's going to be like in, say, 50 years' time, going by where we are today and what's going on at the moment. And given this whole war theater situation, I mean, Russia, Ukraine, it's old news now, right? Oh no, forget it. Forget that. That's yesterday's news, man. It's all about Israel now, Palestine. It's moving rapid. Then it'll move from there, probably to Iran. If it goes there, I don't know. I kind of get the feeling the Iranians might be a bit hectic. And if they do want complete chaos, then what better way than to orchestrate a world war? And we've talked about the Project Bluebeam, or an artificial alien invasion to pretty much conquer and change the world completely. And we've discussed how, in my own view anyway, if that is going to happen, and I still kind of, I don't know, I'm 60% that it won't happen. If it is going to happen, it's going to be when we are on our knees big time. And that's this kind of world that, in my mind, is hard to imagine. Say in 20 years' time, maybe not even that, man, at the speed we're going at the moment. So I'm unsure. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the Israel situation. I'm not big on the whole war theater. We do cover it to an extent. Nothing major, right? Nothing major, but yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. Of course, I'm right on the doorstep of one of the biggest bases in the UK, and they are still on high alert. And it's constant, man. Constant. I was watching one today. It was a fighter jet, and it was pretty cool, to be honest. I always find them fascinating bits of equipment, these aircraft, especially the fighter jet. And it was like he was showing off the guy. He was going right up in the air, then like turning side to side, swooping down. And I thought, I bet that's an American. I guarantee you any money that's some American guy. Because you don't see it often. But I think now they're not doing training anymore. This is now a live situation that we've got. And I think there's constant air traffic in the way of military in the UK. And they're not doing that for nothing. Nothing said about the carbon emissions there, right? Oh no, the Russians. We must do it because the Russians, right? Yeah. So I don't know. People have pointed to Iran, just on that. If it kicks off there, I guess yeah, there could be escalation to what they might declare as being World War III. Percentage wise, I'm about maybe 40% that happening at the moment. So I think we can relax, right? Nothing to fear. Sit down. Famous last words. I mean, don't fear anything anyway. Whatever's going to be is going to be. But in regards to if there is an all-out war, we've covered it before. People need to be prepared before this. Forget that. You need to be ready at home for any given emergency situation. So if you're not by now, maybe it's time you got going, right? If you watch the movie Purge, maybe we could see a world a bit like that. Every day is the Purge, right? My wife got me to watch it a couple of days ago. Yeah, a bit weird. We're going to watch the second one. It was made in 2014 and it's actually set in 2023, which I noticed last night. And I thought, and it reminds me of the George Orwell. What did they have again? An hour of hate. Was that what they had? Or is that in Animal Farm? Someone's got to correct me now, right? So we'll say hello to anybody who's in the hood and good evening, wherever you may be. We're hoping the audio is, well, good because I've got a lot of tabs and different stuff open tonight. So we could have issues, but hey, that's life. But not as we know it. It's a duck in the door. Good to see you. Usually first in. So first comment that I've seen, but I'm not. I'm way behind. The story of my life. So what can I say, right? Land Raver in the hood. Good to see you as well. Wendy B, a pleasure. My son Rich is in the hood, who is technically not my son, but hey, I guess that's life, but not as you know it, right? Again, Linda, good to see Linda, and the beautiful Justine. A pleasure to see you back again. Fantastic. Rel is in the hood. Great stuff. Good to see you. Our brother Ulick back again. Good to see Ulick. Bry in the hood. Great stuff, Bry. A pleasure. Alphabet Cat. ABC in the hood. Good to see you. A cracking wee cat there. You can have mine if you want. She's a little bugger. Honestly, man, anything you don't want a cat to do, it'll do it. Guaranteed. A bit like a kid, right? Yeah, tell me about it. And do you know what? My dog is a bit like that as well. Anywhere I don't want him to sit down, He's going to sit there straight away before I've even turned away. He's done it. My dog Beans, he's a bit of a character. Let's go with that, right? Where did I get to? Alphabet Cat. Simon in the Hood as well. I think it might have been a Eurofighter, actually. It was a Eurofighter or a Typhoon. But I think it was a Eurofighter. It's a bit lighter in colour. In a completely different shape. So I should know, right? But yeah, I think you might be right. A Eurofighter. And I have been keeping an eye on the radar, and they're always there. Not like obsessively looking at it, because you can get a bit like that with it as well, following different aircraft. But I noticed at the moment, due to obviously the situation in Israel, and I mean on that, I don't really know that much about it. For years, people have talked about Palestine and this, that, and the next thing, but I've never been able to believe very much, to be honest. None of what the mainstream media and none of what social media tells me. So I don't know very much about it. But we will likely keep an eye on it, at least. As far as I'm aware, we probably will cover it in the coming weeks, because I don't think it's going to go away. Some of the stuff they're talking about is truly atrocious, but I remember them talking about that about 10 years ago. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll let you know. Anyway, where did I get to there? Justine, Katie as well in the Hood. I always get lost in the comments. It doesn't take much to confuse me, right? Katie Kane, fantastic. Good to see you. And I think we could be good to go. We're gonna go with that, right? I'll quickly go to the bottom. Brian's in the Hood as well. Good to see Bri. Fantastic. Is Mad Fox as well. Yep, fantastic. Good to see you. Great. We've got quite a few people, which is, I guess that's good, right? Or bad for me, because I can't multitask. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Hey, you know me, right? So good to see Carol as well with the sunflower. Fantastic. And Joni as well. Joni Rotten, who makes sure you get subscribed, right? We will jump into the chat again, but I think now we're going to kind of get down to it. I'm going to get down to it. And because otherwise I'll be here yapping constantly. But there's a lot going on at the moment, and so I thought we could go a bit different tonight, rather than it's World War III. I mean, we've talked about this, even going back to when Russia invaded Ukraine for what appeared to be the second time in 2022. We talked about that. It likely will escalate if they want 1984 on steroids, a world living in a perpetuated war. Is that the right word? Then we weren't quite there at that time, but we're getting there now. We are getting there. They're dragging us into it. And in my own view, there should not be war. There simply shouldn't. But of course there is. That's the way it's going to be. I think the biggest problem is it's not always them against them. You've got different entities who step in and say, well, actually, I could benefit from this, right? So I think at the moment they're pointing to Palestine being supplied by Iran, or Hamas being supplied by Iran. It did cross my mind about the military equipment in Afghanistan, and I know people have thought about that as well. But that was actually one of the first things I thought, maybe that's where it went. Maybe Hamas got it. but I know some of it seemingly went to Ukraine. And I know this because one of the key takeaways from the article I was reading about this on CNN was the fact that America had made all these different deals with Ukraine before the invasion of Ukraine, way before it. So they knew. Of course they knew. It's a complete theater. The only people that lose out is us. We're the ones who are going to fucking suffer at the end of the day. We know who the real enemy is. But of course, we get told, well, it's the boogeyman. Ah, the Russians, the Taliban, the ISIS, the Hamas. Who's the next one going to be? Fucking AI bin Laden. Look out for it. He's coming to a studio or a laptop near you, right? Yeah. So I don't know how far we should investigate this particular topic. Is it a good idea? Is it a good idea to be sniffing around this kind of incident? I think we could be okay. It's well in the past now, and I mean the way they kill folk today, they don't even care. They don't even try and hide it, man. They just do it. And a lot of these, they clearly didn't try to hide it either. But the fact they got away and it got deemed not a murder or suspicious is astonishing, man. So whoever is behind it, and they're definitely connected. Whoever is behind it or was behind it clearly had big pockets to dip into, right? And we'll get into that a wee bit more. So good evening to everyone tonight. I reckon we can get into it. What I'll do is I'll try and keep an eye on the chat, which is never usually successful. All right, but hey, I can try my best. I'm not a professional, but I can try. I can at least go with that. So yeah, I'm enjoying my holiday. The weather's been absolutely terrible. Like with other people, and we had severe rain, man. Terrible rain, flooding. I mean, crazy wind today, but the flooding of late, unreal. A wee bit abnormal. We do get bad weather at this time of year, a lot of rain, but yeah, I think they've capitalized on it and made it a lot worse than what it should have been. Probably with the different techniques that they use, let's say. And the night before, the 2 days before, I did see different spraying going on, and it was above the clouds, almost hidden. And I've got evidence on my phone in gaps in the cloud, but it was pretty much clouded over. And I thought, oh yeah, there we go, there they go. And the night before we had severe rain, a friend of mine told me she woke up at about I don't know 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and she looked out the window and they were spraying. It was pitch black, and she could see the chemtrails in the sky. The night before, the heavy, severe rain that would most definitely be put down to global warming, dun, dun, dun. All that driving to work, right? Totally not the spraying. Oh no, don't be silly. That would be a conspiracy theory. Sure, let's go with that. So, with that said, the weather has been pretty poor. Right, so I can guarantee I've not seen any of the news lately, and I don't watch it. I just get it from time to time. I can guarantee you they will be saying climate change. What are we going to do? What's the solution? Ah, I know. Geoengineering. Yay. Let's put mirrors in the sky. Let's capture the carbon. Let's poison the ocean. Completely pollute it so it kills absolutely every single thing in it. Net zero, hooray! All hail net zero, right? Of course, geoengineering, that's another issue that we need to get into. There's a wee bit of movement here and there. Not much, nothing major to report. But yeah, it looks like it's on track. It's going to happen. Yeah, we know it's already happening, but all out in the open, backed by the sheeple happening, yeah, it's going to come. All the good news here, right? And yeah, that's what I was going to say. Even though tonight's a wee bit different, it is still a bit grim as well. So I do apologize, right? But in my own view, it kind of needs to be said that it shows you the extent they'll go. They do not fuck about, man. Straight up. No way. And this is a gigantic company. Imagine, like I said before, imagine stepping on the toe of the British government. How long do you think you would last, right? I shouldn't laugh, but how long do you reckon you would get if you really put a spanner in the work? I don't think you would see the day out. It would be like that. And maybe, just maybe, they have the technology to do it. And that specific technology may have well been the technology that a lot of these dead scientists or engineers were working on. And I mean, some of them I would not rule out as some of them you know it's not suicide. But some of them, yeah, maybe. Maybe they thought, actually, I don't want to be making these terrible weapons anymore. I don't want to be part of it. And I would imagine, even if you were thinking in that sort of frame of mind and your work got wind of it, you would be finished. And I mean proper finished, man. So it maybe wouldn't be a good idea. You would be better keeping your mouth shut and getting on with it. See out your time and get out as far away from it as you fucking can. And do not look back, man. I would not go anywhere near any of these companies, no matter how much money they tried to pay me, man. Not a hope in hell. They would promise you the earth and some. And in the end, you would get zilch. Sound familiar? Yeah, that sounds like my company. That's like the people I work for, right? Yeah, I guess that is kind of the way of it. So, like I mentioned before, I did see originally, let me see if I can share. I originally seen a comment, and the gentleman pointed to a document that listed quite a big number of suspicious deaths relating to scientists and microbiologists in the 1980s, many of them or groups of them working for the same company involved in the same frame or line of work. Totally not connected, right? Yeah. So is there anyone who's heard about this already and knows all about it? It might bore you, but I don't think it will, because we're going to be covering quite a bit, to be honest, even though we're only basically touching base and having a look at what is being said. And then we'll do a bit of a part two, let's say, where we might look into specific individuals and look more into who is actually behind the companies that we touch on tonight. But that'll be, again, probably about 3 hours or 4 in itself. So that'll be part 2. Hooray! Look out for that. So I want to take you to quickly this particular document here. Dead Scientists and Microbiologists Master List, compiled by Mark J. Harper. And he's got his email address there. So we may contact Mark at some point, because I've got a feeling the list is probably bigger now. So in terms of a kind of introduction, the Marconi scientists' mystery, right? In the 1980s, over 24 science graduates and experts working for Marconi or Paisley Defense Systems died in mysterious circumstances, most appearing to be suicide. The MOD denied these scientists had been involved in classified Star Wars projects. It's my lightsaber. And that the deaths were in any way connected. Judge for yourself. And then, I mean, that's a really short introduction to it. But he then goes on to list and also talk about other stuff, but list a lot of the people who have died suspiciously in either unknown conclusion or suicide. And suicide, I mean, it's basically the calling card of a lot of these entities. It's a bit like a calling card for the British intelligence. Another one for them would be to claim that there's kind of some sort of sex game that went wrong. That's a calling card of the MI5, MI6 British agency. No two ways about it. And that still goes on today. Guaranteed. These entities don't go away, and they do not go on holiday. So we will jump back to the list because I do want to read some of them out. And it's mind-blowing, man. Absolutely mind-blowing. So we'll get back to the list, but what I want to now go to, if I can work the screen, is the first part in what is a short documentary. Can we call it that? Yeah, we'll call it that. And I think it goes 10 minutes and then another part for about 4 minutes, right? So it's broken in 2 parts, so I better remember that. I'll try my best. I will be here watching it. It's not too long, even though my wife did say, how long? But she's more TikTok, Instagram, 10-second clip mentality. But there you go. 15 minutes is too long for people now. They've not got time, man. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a bit long, but in short, it does quite well at explaining what's happened, and I think it's important because you get to see interviews with the widows of the people that died, and I think some of that can be quite telling. So what I'll do is I'll put me on to mute, right? Hooray! And then we'll play the video, and then we'll look at maybe the list, or we'll go into the companies, right? Every which way but lose. So it doesn't really matter. But so what I'll do is I'll find the video. There she blows. So this video came out in 1989 on ABC 2020. I don't know, 20-minute segment. Probably put out once in its whole bloody life. But it got put out. The American guy came to the UK, covered it, interviewed, asked some decent questions, I guess. You wouldn't see it today, anything like this, to be honest. It shows you how far we've came, right? Hooray for journalism! But yeah, it's a wee bit of journalism, I guess. They didn't go too deep into anything, which is no surprise. But yeah, I think it's worth looking at. So, 1989, after all these murders had taken place, because that's what they were. Let's not beat about the bush, right? So put me on mute and then make sure you're listening, because we get straight into it, right? So here it goes.
It's a story so rich in intrigue that if it were fiction, it would likely be a bestseller, because all of the dead, almost 24 to date, worked in Western Europe's defense industry.
And the deaths, some bizarre by any standards, have been scattered across the continent. Only by chance did the pattern emerge. But the question is obvious. Is this all just coincidence, or has international espionage produced a string of murders? Well, Stone Phillips went to Europe to investigate, and here's what he found out.
The mystery begins here in picturesque Bristol, England. In August 1986, Vimal Dajubai, a 24-year-old computer scientist, drove his car to this 200-foot-high suspension bridge. He walked out along the edge. Then he jumped to his death. Or was he pushed? Dajubai had left no suicide note. When his body was recovered, initial police reports noted a strange puncture mark on his thigh. But the case passed virtually unnoticed. Then one night about a month later, on this hill overlooking Bristol, another young computer scientist, Ashad Sharif, working for the same company, tied a rope around a tree, wrapped the other end around his neck, then got back into his car and pushed the accelerator to the floor. Dajubai and Sharif were both working for Marconi, one of Britain's top defense contractors, and in less than a month's time, both had died unnatural deaths. This time, somebody noticed.
I was given what I thought at the time was accurate information, but which later turned out to be totally false.
Tony Collins, a reporter with a trade publication called Computer News, started digging after receiving a tip. He discovered that one of the dead men worked on a highly secret project called Cosmos, doing underwater torpedo research that also had applications to America's Star Wars program. Then Collins found that by merely knowing about the Cosmos project, Marconi felt he knew too much.
The more inquiries I made about it, it seemed that the more upset Marconi became. And they wanted to know exactly what information we'd obtained, and they said that there'd been an internal inquiry which had established that we'd been given information which could be harmful to the national interest.
But the warning didn't work. Headlined Mystery Deaths, Tony Collins' story hit the newsstands here in London in March 1987 and set off an avalanche of stories and speculation in every major newspaper in Great Britain. As reporters began digging, they discovered what seemed to be a pattern of unusual and often bizarre deaths of scientists, engineers, and computer experts in the defense industry. The prestigious London Sunday Times documented a total of 22 mysterious deaths and disappearances. One of the earliest and most puzzling was the 1982 death of Professor Keith Bowden, a brilliant computer scientist who did secret work for the Ministry of Defense. His death has always seemed suspicious to his family.
This was not an accidental death. There is, I feel, some form of conspiracy by somebody. Whether it is one side or the other side, I know not. The purpose of it, I know not.
As this reenactment suggests, Bowden was driving home from a dinner party when his new Rover slammed into a ditch. The road was clear, and friends say Bowden had not been drinking. Discrepancies in the police report led Bowden's widow to hire a private investigator who told her that the tires on her husband's new car had been changed.
These are the tires.
Someone had replaced them with old and dangerous tires.
These are not the tires that would have been on the Rover. They're a different sort of tire, and you can see how badly worn they are. They're smooth, and here they're worn right down to the fabric.
That's worn completely through the tread.
Completely through.
And this wear could not have happened from the accident, from the burning of the tire?
No.
You believe this was not an accident?
No, that wasn't an accident. Got me an accident with those things on his car, didn't it?
Since 1982, 4 other British defense scientists have been killed in unexplained car crashes.
He never talked about anything at home.
In this quiet English garden, yet another macabre death.
This was his tool shed, his garden shed.
Right, it's in a bit of a mess at the moment.
Mary Beckham found her husband, Alistair, electrocuted in his garden shed.
This is where you found the body.
That's right.
Beckham was a happily married man with 3 beautiful daughters and had worked for years for a large defense contractor called Plessy Naval Systems. He was an engineer, but in 17 years of marriage, he never told his wife exactly what kind of work he did. Mrs. Beckham finds it impossible to believe that he would walk into this shed after pruning the trees, wrap bare wire around his arm, and flick on the 220-volt current.
He had pinned a fuse with a paper clip and had a handkerchief stuffed into his mouth. It was horrible. When we couldn't open the shed door, one of my twin daughters looked in through the keyhole and she said, "Mommy, Daddy is lying in there. I see him." And then I had a look and I could see his feet sort of on top of this.
Just a few hours after his death, as in other cases we were told about, men showed up to remove confidential defense documents from his home.
You see, the key was...
Mrs. Beckham also wonders why her husband installed this wide-angle peephole.
Sort of strange to have a peephole in
Yes.
a garden shed door.
Yes. Well, I'm afraid I can't tell you why it's there. He must have had a reason for having it there.
As more and more strange deaths of defense researchers came to light, the British press abounded with speculation and theories. Was a foreign power involved? Some observed that it wasn't hard to figure out who would benefit if important NATO research was slowed down. But hard evidence to support any kind of a connection just wasn't there, and the British government insisted it was all just a coincidence. But at least one opposition member of parliament isn't satisfied.
I think the government should look into it and tell us more about it. And I want to know why, in many cases, the police at first appeared to be doing an investigation and then called it off and said, no, there's nothing else to investigate.
Are you seriously concerned that something sinister may be at work?
Yes,
here?
I am concerned that something sinister is at work. It's when you press me beyond that to say, well, what are the sinister forces coming from, that I'm able to answer you.
Bombings and assassinations in Europe directed at NATO research targets have added to the speculation that something sinister is going on. In Germany in 1986, the research director at Siemens Electronics, a large company doing SDI, or Star Wars research, was killed by a terrorist bomb. Later, there were bombings at 2 more German laboratories doing SDI work.
These 3 attacks had the main target, the same target. It was the defense industry. All involved more or less in SDI, for example, and in other highly sophisticated technology.
And in Sweden, an underwater defense expert, like the 2 men in Bristol, disappeared along with all the testing equipment in his boat. Svante Odin's death was kept quiet by the Swedish authorities until the press found out. And if the events themselves seem strange, just take a look at the timing. The German and Swedish incidents and the death at the Bristol Bridge all happened within just 30 days of one another. What does American intelligence say about all of this? The CIA, as usual, refuses to comment. But we did talk to a respected intelligence expert in Washington, Ray Klein, who's been an advisor to 7 presidents.
The intelligence analysts have to study the probabilities. I would say the probability is that in most of the cases that have been reviewed, there is a hostile purpose by an enemy intelligence service which has either controlled or has suggested to maybe irresponsible people that it would be wise for them to attack a specific enemy, and that those enemies are the high-tech defense research community.
One very senior member of that high-tech defense research community was John Ferry, another Marconi employee. Ferry's widow says he flew to NATO headquarters in Brussels every 2 weeks to chair an important NATO research committee. And a few years ago, he was the British military's top research and development man in Washington. Of all the deaths we examined, his was probably the most gruesome.
I mean, did you know the way in which he killed himself? I mean, he actually took 2 electrodes and taped them. He had some black sticky tape to his molars where he'd got fillings in his teeth, stoppings. So it was metal on metal, like that. I mean, it was an extraordinary thing to do. It's horrible.
But even though Mrs. Ferry finds the way her husband died extremely bizarre, of all the widows we talked to, she was the least suspicious. She told us that 1 month before his death, John Ferry and his daughter were driving down a country road when a truck swerved directly at them. Although no one was seriously injured, Ferry seemed to suffer a complete mental breakdown. Mrs. Ferry contends that if you look closely at any large industry, you'd find a comparable suicide rate. But a suicide expert we talked to says there's something unusual here.
A number of these deaths do not appear to fit the pattern that you would expect from people of this background.
Meaning no suicide note?
No suicide note. Some of the deaths, and two in particular, are very, very bizarre.
Absent any severe mental disorder, any mental illness, how do you explain such bizarre methods?
Well, I can't, other than perhaps to quote dear old Hamlet when he says, "Methinks there's something rotten in the state of Denmark."
Last year, another defense scientist died here in the seaside village of Lytham in northern England. John Whiteman, a computer expert at British Aerospace, had been working on a new fighter aircraft being developed by Britain, Germany, and Italy. He was found drowned in his bathtub, empty bottles of whiskey and sleeping pills at his side. And yet, curiously, no pills and only a fraction of that alcohol were found in his system. The death here in Lytham, like the others, seemed hard to explain. The local coroner was unable to determine the cause of death. The verdict, once again, left open. But this case focused not so much on questions of foul play, but on another problem facing the defense industry, a problem no less insidious.
A lot of these men seem to have been suffering from stress. And I think stress is a problem in the defence industry, and it seems to be a problem that isn't recognised by the companies concerned.
Mrs. Whiteman says her husband was stressed out and anxious over an impossible assignment that his bosses refused to release him from, a claim the company denies. Although she's puzzled by his death and the unexplained pill and whiskey bottles, absent any evidence of foul play, job-related stress is the only explanation she can come up with.
It was only when he was asked to do something that he felt was impossible, and I think he was put under the stress by his superiors.
When we contacted British Aerospace about the Whiteman death, we were told that stress is a personal problem, one the company can do nothing about, and that any further comment on this case would violate the Official Secrets Act. Journalist Tony Collins points out that stress cannot explain all of the deaths. He cites the case of Peter People, who did secret research at the Royal Military College. 2 years ago, after an enjoyable evening playing Trivial Pursuit with friends, his wife found him dead beneath his car in the locked garage. The engine was running, his head directly under the exhaust. But police said it was impossible to get into that position with the garage door closed.
Why he would kill himself is absolutely baffling. I don't think you can say that stress is a contributory factor in all the cases. Obviously, stress must play a part in some of them. But I don't think any of these cases lend themselves to a single, easy explanation.
Some critics say the British government's refusal to launch an official investigation is just one more example of a growing obsession with secrecy, especially in matters of defense and intelligence.
Even if there was nothing untoward, nothing suspicious about it, surely this country should be concerned that some of its top scientists and computer experts engaged in top defense contracts have lost their lives. I would have thought that would concern any government anywhere throughout the world.
But so far, demands for an inquiry have been falling on deaf ears, and it appears the widows could be left with a maze of troubling questions, along with their grief. Is this string of deaths only a coincidence, a series of unconnected accidents, misadventures, and suicides, as the British government insists? Or is there more to it? Is the government holding back information in the name of national security? Is the high-tech, high-pressure world of defense research pushing scientists over the brink? Has espionage played a role in any of these deaths? Many of the victims' families say they don't know who or what to believe, and fear that in the end, their need for answers will always lose out to the tight-lipped secrecy of the defense world.
What do you think happened?
I don't know what happened. I wish I knew.
Do you think your husband committed suicide?
No. No, I don't. No.
Do you think you'll ever know what happened?
I doubt it. I hope I will, but I don't believe I ever will.
Stone, what's the reaction of the U.S. Embassy to all of this?
Hugh, a spokesman there told me that they've been following the press reports, passing them on to Washington, but beyond that, they don't know anything more about this story than we do. But they're inclined to believe the British government's position that this is just a coincidence.
What about the British public and their attitude? Are they getting annoyed with all the official secrecy?
Well, somewhat annoyed, somewhat suspicious, I think. People we talked to told us they felt the government just isn't telling all it knows about this subject. In fact, the Thatcher government has recently proposed legislation in Parliament that would strengthen the Official Secrets Act, which in this country would already be considered unconstitutional. So that adds to the puzzlement of this whole case.
Thank you, Stone.
Later, would you call our court system a prison of tears? This family would. They're not on trial, but John Stossel shows us why they feel they are. Pain without end. And next, many of our smartest high school seniors are Asian Americans. Lynn Scher asks, have they become victims of their own success?
There we go. We're back. I had to leave the advert at the end. Victims of their own success, eh? Yeah. So that came out in 1989, and it should give you a good idea of what we're talking about here, what we're dealing with here. Some of them deaths, I mean, talk about secrecy when it comes to defense and government. They do not want anybody knowing anything whatsoever. And if you do know, you better hide, because even if you know, they'll come and get you. Even if you're not going to tell anyone, they'll take you out because they will not risk it. And I think that happened to some of these individuals. One or two of them, I think we could maybe put down to possibly being suicide. There's 3 or 4 that no way, not a hope in hell is it suicide. It is straight up cold murder. No two ways about it. And they mentioned Hamlet and something rotten. Yeah. Something is rotten, all right. It stinks to the high heavens, man. So badly. British Aerospace, BA, which is basically what Marconi became, involved from pretty much the very beginning of the deaths that happened in the 1980s at least. The individual who got found next to bottles of whiskey in a load of tablets that he seemingly took while carrying out an overdose. Yet, the pills he was meant to have overdosed on did not appear in his system. Neither did the whiskey that he seemingly drank before committing what they called suicide. I mean, that clearly is not. How could that have not been investigated? It probably got so far and then it got stopped. Similar to what, by the sounds of it, the inquiry. There was people clearly who wanted an inquiry. Clearly there were people at that time, who thought, wait a minute, this is a bit a handkerchief. He sellotaped them what, to his mouth? I mean, people clearly thought, yeah, this is a bit dodgy, right? It needs to be looked into. And I reckon either one or two or both things would have happened then. The people behind it would have pulled rank on a judge or the police department and said, look, nope, that's not going to happen. Or the person who decided to take it that step further got warned that, by the way, continue to do what you're doing, and you will also be a mysterious death. And that sometimes is enough to put a stop to it. And that might have happened on several occasions. They may have paid numerous people a visit and said, look, by the way, you might want to drop it, right? Or you will be an investigation. Not a good one, right? I shouldn't laugh because it's horrific when you hear about the detail in some of these deaths that occurred. Absolutely horrific, man. Who are these creatures that commit these terrible crimes, man? They're clearly psychopathic. Absolutely insane. Like a international gang of killers that you could, if you had the right bank balance, you could hire them like that to take out probably anybody if you've got enough money. And I would imagine some of these big entities that run the show, they've got these, let's say, assassins on speed dial, man. They'll be on speed dial. Because anybody who gets in the way, they don't last very long. Not in my view, anyway. So I thought that was a good introduction to at least the British side of this affair relating to the dead scientists and also dead microbiologists. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll jump to that for the time being. If I can work the screen. So I'm hoping that we're all good. What I'll do is I'll try and keep an eye, but you know what I'm like. You know what I'm like, right? So I'll try and keep an eye. We're still going. I see Katie, Linda, Wendy, tuning. I can't see it. Turning guns. Rich, Frank. Oh, Frank the Tank is in the hood. Good to see you. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll share the screen. We appear to be all good in the hood, which is great. I'll take you back to the original document that I seen on the Richie Allen show. And if you don't know of, it wasn't actually being shown by Richie Allen. I found it on his website. Someone had posted it on there. So Richie, before I throw Richie under the bus, he's not actually covered this, I don't think. Maybe he has, and I'm unaware of it. But it's maybe a topic that he could get into. So thanks to the person that posted, and of course to the Richie Allen show, which I highly recommend. If you, like I said, if you don't know of it, check it out. The guy puts in a lot of work, man. A ton load of work. Second to none. Does a show, a relaxed music show on a Sunday morning, then all out full blown Richie Allen show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then he has his weekend, and he does that week in, week out basically since about maybe 2014. And I think in September 2014 is when I started to listen to Richie Allen. Probably, I think, maybe from the very beginning, come to think of it. And I was still in a gradual process. I mean, we learn every day, but even thinking back to 2014, man, wow, I have came a long, long way, a seriously long way in the sense of having my eyes opened to what you might call the true nature of the beast system that we are in, because that is exactly what it is, a beast system. I could not explain it any more than that. It's the only way you can describe it. So let me, what I want to do is go back. What we're going to do right here is go back and put it like that. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. Looks better, right? Gets me out the way. So I'm on the coffee tonight. And that was a bit hotter than I expected it to be. I done that the other day. I was eating a chicken pie. Shocking, right? What's the carbon footprint on that? Nope, put it in the bin. You can't eat that. Think about the net zero. And I was dying to taste it. And I mean, I know this. I'm meant to be an adult, right? I know. I mean, it's practically just out of the oven. Just out. And I've cut it up and then decided that it would be a good idea to eat a bit. Yeah, I mean, for about a day as well, the roof of my mouth at my front teeth bloody burnt. And it was so annoying, man. I thought, do you know this? How many times has that happened to me in my life? And I'm still doing it today. There's no hope, right? There's no hope when you use me as an example. So yeah, lesson learned. Wait until it cools down. And the gravy was pretty much still boiling. And I'm like, yeah, that'll do. That's good to eat. Anyway, one day I'll get it right. So yeah, we make it the full screen. Yeah, I mean, just going back to the video that we showed, all they can say is, "Oh, coincidence." A coincidence. Honestly. I mean, fuck you know. A coincidence. Just a coincidence. Yeah. I'll tell you what a coincidence is, right? Me walking outside with a blue jumper on, and then my neighbor walking out with a blue jumper on. That's a coincidence. That we just watched, that is a serious worry and clearly a serious fucking crime committed. No two ways about it. How anybody can look at that and say, oh, coincidence. How they could then go home and sleep at night is beyond me. I mean, you just could not look at that and claim coincidence. Of course, the British government, they would claim coincidence, right? But yeah, coincidence does not exist unless you walk outside and you're wearing the same color of jumper as, I don't know, some hobo, let's say. You could call that a coincidence, right? I can buy that. But when you're dealing with the world that we're in and these types of situations, there is no coincidence. It simply does not happen. And even when it comes to the blue jumper, there's probably a reason for that. There's no such thing as a coincidence. You're meant to have that same jumper that day. The reason will be known, revealed. Oh, and by the way, the name of that documentary, the short documentary, is called the name of this live stream, which is, of course, Grave Secrets. Now, is it? I'm second. Yeah, it is. I was thinking there for a minute. Wait, because I was unsure of the title originally. But then I thought, well, if we start with the documentary, we'll go with the name Grave Secrets, right? So there's not much mystery behind it. So if you do want to look up the documentary, you will find it. And it is under the name Grave Secrets, and you cannot miss it. There's nothing else like it to an extent, right? So yeah, I'm forgetting the guy's name who posted the comment, but thank you for posting it. I'm a bit worried about the audio. So yeah, nothing changes there. What have I done? Why is it? Ah, there we go. Right, so the MOD denied these scientists had been involved in classified Star Wars projects and that the deaths were in any way connected. I mean, they all worked for pretty much the same company. A lot of the ones we touched on there, what was the time difference between them? Or between them all? 30 days, man. And they're calling them not connected? So if it's not connected, what was it? Just a weird, abnormal spike in absolutely astonishing circumstances, suicides. I mean, how anybody could go down that route is beyond me. They're totally in denial, man. Putting it down to stress, a coincidence. Yes, stress is a killer, but this was not stress that done that, man. No way. In my own view, a stressed individual to an extent where they've had enough, the likelihood would be a quick, just boom, finished, gone, shotgun, off a cliff. Nothing, no fucking about, man. No fucking about. None of this taping and stuff to anything and wires and all that BS. No way. No way. In James Bond world, espionage, yeah. In everyday life, not quite so. At least in my own view and my own experience anyway. So the first guy on this particular list, why is it not doing what I wanted to do? And I couldn't download it because I'm blind. Yeah, you don't see them falling into walls or walking into lampposts or cycling into an electric box, right? Who done that? Let's not go there. Let's not go there. You don't want to know, right? And yeah, I was nearly an accident. Because I don't even know how that happened, but I ended up head first into a big grey electric box and started my head something chronic. So there's your answer, right? Ah, that's why. That's why. I did wonder. Now it makes sense. Although some of you might be thinking, but he was like that before. I know, I get it. So I wanted to point out as well, some of you, the sharp-eyed, sharp-eared of you might have heard that in that interview, one of the widows talked about her husband who got murdered. He was having meetings with NATO through his work at General Electric. NATO. And it was a secret meeting that he was attending, I think, every 2 weeks. And he did not discuss it. None of them did. Of course, it was top secret. And probably horrendous. So no wonder they wouldn't want to put the burden on their wonderful wife. They carry that themselves. So you could see why some of them would be pushed to suicide, because we do see it today in certain industries, especially and quite unbelievably doctors and the health industry, where they're meant to care for you, to help you. They're at their wits' end, done in, finished. And that is a big issue at the moment, and it's getting even bigger. Can't imagine why though, right? Can't imagine why. So we'll also get into NATO in a wee bit, and Marconi and General Electric Company, not to be confused, although very similar in an extent, not to be confused with the American entity General Electric. This is the British General Electric. Two different entities, but two entities that you would not trust as far as you could throw them, guaranteed. So we'll cover that a wee bit. Is there any more videos to show? I don't think there is. So we're all good. I'm trying not to make it about 4 hours long. I shouldn't have said that. I should have left it, right? And I thought, do you know what? In that documentary as well, the absolute cheek of the company, General Electric or Marconi, to say that stress is a personal issue and it had nothing to do with them whatsoever. Yeah, but the stress is caused by the work that you put them through. But but they wash their hands with any responsibility whatsoever. There we go. We're back. My daughter, my daughter came in and yeah, ruined it. Right, typical children. Don't have them. Honestly, take my advice. Don't do it. I joke, I kid. Hopefully my wife's not watching. I did see Danny, my brother, in the hood. So if you're still there, good evening, Danny. I hope you're doing well. Who I will see next week, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. My memory is horrid. But yeah, that's me, I guess, right? What am I going to do about that? Brain train. Has anyone done that? The brain training? Remember when them games came out? Oh, you can train your brain by doing what? Stupid Sudoku. Look, my life's confusing enough. I don't want to be doing Sudoku, right? Hey, I was good at the dot to dot and spot the difference, and I like the odd word search and crosswords, to be fair. I enjoyed. It's been a long time since I've done anything like that, crossword. Ah, man, that was the days of when I used to buy a paper. Remember them days? Just me, maybe just me, right? The crossword, yeah, but the Sudoku or anything like that, just nah, man, not for me. My brother, my eldest brother, he is actually really good at the Sudoku. I don't know why. He got blessed with the mathematical gene. It skipped me. It skipped me completely. Yeah, along with everything else. We know. We know. So, I mean, this makes for yeah, grim reading. I'm afraid there's no other way to describe it. And it's staggering. It blew my mind. And I mean, I know all about them, but this is just above and beyond. And the fact that there's more than the ones we got told about previously in the documentary, a lot more to that. Not just scientists in the electromagnetic spectrum, if you like, but also going by this document in the microbiological world. So the first individual who I think the guy got mentioned in the documentary, March 1982, Professor Keith Bowden, 46 years of age. Enterprise computer programmer and scientist at Essex University, engaged in work for Marconi. Marconi. Aye, get it? Who was hailed as an expert on supercomputers. Wow! And computer-controlled aircraft. So quite the guy. I mean, what sort of brain would you have to be an expert on super-duper computers? Well, I guess you wouldn't need much of a brain because the computer would do all the thinking for you. Hooray! 2023! So he was big on the supercomputer, which clearly Marconi and General Electric Company UK were involved with, not just on a commercial scale, but on a military scale. Remember who the war is always against. Me and you. So, circumstances of death. Fatal car crash when his vehicle went out of control across a dual carriageway and plunged onto a disused railway line. Police maintained he had been drinking, but family and friends all denied the allegation. So that the first one did get a mention in the documentary that we've seen. And family, his wife completely, nope, he didn't commit suicide. I think that's the one where she actually got a private investigator. Excuse me. She actually got a private investigator and he looked at the car and the bloody tyres had been changed to tyres that were deemed, dangerous to be driving in. And I mean, if that's suicide, that's some way to go to commit suicide. You wouldn't even be guaranteed, I don't think. So, balding the tyres, replacing the tyres, and then what exactly? Putting a flashlight in his face when he's on the road at high speed. I don't know how they would have done it. Whatever way he crashed that night to his death, and they deemed it a suicide after a dinner party, driving home. Would you not wait until you got home? At least. Maybe not. So that we can't be in my own view. Not an expert, far from it. You've got to go to the UN for that, of course, or the WHO, right? We might be okay for medical. We might be okay for medical information tonight, but hold that thought, we might not. We might not. April 1983. Anyone remember that? Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Goodley, 49, head of the work study unit at the Royal College of Military Science. Circumstances of death: disappeared mysteriously in April 1983 without explanation, presumed dead. I would imagine probably, yeah. Disappeared without explanation. Probably a well-paid guy. I doubt he was in debt or living in poverty. The Royal College of Military Science, I wonder what sort of work they got up to. Maybe he did just disappear and thought, do you know what? This ain't for me, man. Because that's what you would have to do. Otherwise, they'll come and get you. So maybe he did. Maybe he'd seen the smoke before the fire, because it would appear that some of them maybe did. Going by the peeping Tom, the peephole that got installed in the guy's shed. I mean, it was a fucking shotgun that I shouldn't laugh, but it was a shotgun that he was needing. Not a peephole, man. Because if they're going to come for you, they're going to come. And they ain't going to be coming bearing gifts. No way. And you wouldn't get much of a chance. So Lieutenant Goodley, yeah, I wouldn't rule out that guy maybe thinking better of it. Because you would have to completely disconnect yourself from your family as well. Otherwise, they would take them out. And I don't know, maybe they did. March 1985, Roger Hill, 49. Radar designer and draughtsman with Marconi. Died by a shotgun blast at home. Coroner's verdict, suicide. Obviously not much detail on that. Yeah, that sounds a bit like a suicide, I would have to say. So potentially, yeah. But maybe he, again, seen smoke before the fire, had a shotgun at home. And that kind of would play into the hands. They would probably know. They would know about you inside out. They would know these individuals more than they knew themselves, probably. So that one, we can't really say very much about that. Because I would imagine that would be the way you would go. At home. In such a manner where it's done and it's over in a matter of, I don't know, what would it be, a split second, man? You wouldn't even be able to blink. Horrid, right? And I mean, it can be really hard for me as well, even just thinking about the topic that we're discussing, because I've had friends in the past who have done it, and I never seen it coming. You don't see it coming. But they've never been working for Marconi or the British government or anything like that. They've been driven to it by society. That's the only thing I can put it down to. The beast system. It can drive you to it. And I can, unfortunately, pretty much bet that we all know about it now in the world that we're in. And it's hard, man. It is hard. So I'll try my best. I'm not saying I'm going to burst out into getting hankies out. But you never know, right? You never know. It's quite grim. November 19, 1985. Anybody born then? Jonathan Wash, 29, man. 29 years of age. Digital communications expert who had worked at General Electric Company and at British Telecoms. Secret Research Centre in Suffolk. Secret Research Centre. And if you look into General Electric history, one of their major customers was British Telecom. Now, how many people in the UK had a BT landline? Pretty much every house in the whole of this island. No matter where. A bit like the TV. I wonder sometimes, and I know it's a bit out there, but I sometimes wonder if there was more to the telephone, the landline, than we know. Well, it's just a phone, right? Just a telephone. Yeah, and Sweeney Todd was just a barber. Let's go with that. We shouldn't, right? We shouldn't worry. I don't even think there is landlines anymore. I think they're doing away with them completely, and your house phone will be hooked up to Tinternet. Hooray! Or the Ethernet. Do we maybe call it that? Who invented or created the Ethernet? Anybody want to have a crack at that? It wasn't Marconi, was it? Maybe it was. I think it might have been. So he worked for the digital communications at General Electric and BT. So he done both. Might have known a bit more than he should have known. Probably not due to his own doing, but due to the work that he was involved with. So he died as a result of falling from a hotel room in Abidjan. Abidjan? Are we going with that? West Africa. While working for BT, he had expressed fears that his life was in danger. Coroner's verdict open. He knew. He smelt this smoke before the fire. And I would imagine he probably knew, because remember, 1985, we're talking, some of the murders had already happened. So he's maybe thinking, am I going to be next here? A lot of them might have been thinking that. So they reckon, well, the verdict's still open on it. But going by that, they've pushed him. They've pushed him while he's been working for BT in Africa. I wonder what he was doing there. British Telecom, working in Africa. And then the guy decides to jump off his balcony or his hotel room window. We'll leave that one for the time being. August the 4th, 1986. Here we go. Vimal Dajbahai. Dajbahai. Oh man, we'll go with that. We'll call him Vimal. We'll call him Vimal, right? August the 4th, 1980, responsible for testing computer control systems on Tigerfish and Stingray torpedoes at Marconi Underwater Systems in Croxley Green, Hertfordshire. Circumstances of death by 74 meter, which is 240 feet. You knew that, right? So death by a 74 meter fall from Clifton Suspension Bridge, Bristol. Police report on the body mentioned a needle-sized puncture wound on the left buttock, but this was later dismissed as being a result of the fall. A puncture. Vimal had been looking forward to starting a new job in the city of London. And friends had confirmed that there was no reason for him to commit suicide. At the time of his death, he was in the last week of his work with Marconi. Yeah, it was the last week, all right. Fucking hell. They can say that again. So I think what might happen there is the guy knew too much and was too... They could not let him go and not be in complete control of him. So I reckon they would have deemed him what I can only describe as unfit for purpose. And he was clearly working on stuff that I mean, if other entities got a hold of you, they would want the information out of you one way or another. So do you risk it? No, you don't risk it. You take them out because you've got a team of people ready to take them out. They're busy doing it right now, probably. He should have done what the other guy done. Disappeared a few weeks earlier than his last week. And quite heartbreaking that. A young lad at 24 years of age, involved in all these technologies, probably a well-paid job, going on to work in London, happy about it, looking forward to it. And then cut short. October 1986. Arshad Sharif, 26 years of age. I think this is a guy that got mentioned. Reported to have been working on systems for the detection of submarines by satellite. I see. Died as a result of placing a ligature around his neck, tying the other end to a tree, and then driving off in his car with the accelerator pedal jammed down. His unusual death was complicated by several issues. Sharif lived near Vimal, the guy above, in Stanmore, Middlesex. Middlesex? Yeah, we'll go with that. He committed suicide in Bristol and inexplicably had spent the last night of his life in a rooming house. He had paid for his accommodation in cash, was seen to have a bundle of high denomination banknotes in his possession. While the police were told of the banknotes, no mention was made of them at the inquest. And they were never found. Shock horror. I wonder where they went, right? In addition, most of the other guests at the rooming house worked at British Aerospace prior to working for... It's going to be Marconi, innit? Yeah. Prior to working for Marconi. There we go. We're back. I don't. Do you know this? Right? We had an yeah. It was a knock at the door. We had an issue with the document, and then we appeared to get kicked off of StreamYard. So I don't know. I don't know what. Hey, we'll go with it being a coincidence, right? Can we call it that? We'll call it that for the time being. I see I've got a starred. Oh, thanks very much, Ragnar in the hood, my Irish brother. Yeah, Epstein, probably not even dead. Let's face it. Maybe similar to some of these people, he might have known too much and too risky, taken out. But I wouldn't put any weight behind anything. I wouldn't trust any of it. But you can be guaranteed they're lying. Whatever they say, they're lying, right? The mainstream media. So thanks, Ragnar, my Irish brother. Very kind of you. So yeah, I'm all right. We didn't get, maybe their software picked up that Marconi was being exposed, right? I would be interested to see how many people knew about this. We'll get to that towards the end, maybe, if anybody's still here. But yeah, I'm okay. They never. Hey, touch wood. They're not coming to get me, right? I'd imagine they've got bigger fish to fry. Like, I don't know, Russell Brand. Let's go with that. So let me see if I can find where I got to. I'll have to remove the comment. Yeah, tied up a tree, and then tied to another tree, and then another tree, then tied to a gate, then went into his car, used a shotgun, then drove off a cliff. Verdict: suicide. Yeah, you get the point, right? It kind of reminded me of a case in the UK. I've touched on it before. A gentleman called Willie McRae, an absolute hero in my eyes, Willie McRae. And I've got a clip. In fact, I've still got it. The Willie McRae clip that I treasured. Where is he? Now, Willie McRae seemingly committed suicide as well. But in my own view, he didn't. They killed him. Why? I'm unsure. But they definitely killed him. In similar sort of circumstances to some of the scientists we just talked about. His car got found in a weird position, crashed on his way to his holiday home. His air rifle that he shot himself with got found 20 feet away from the car, different papers scattered about. And they put it down to suicide. What they said was, he'd been drinking too much, so he knew the press would destroy him for drink driving. And I mean, if you buy that, you would buy anything. They killed Willie McRae because of statements like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, what did we learn from this inquiry? First, I hope that all of you learned, if you hadn't known ever before, that all of you learned that you don't trust the political establishment in Scotland or in Britain. And that's lesson number one. That you don't trust the political establishment in Scotland or in Britain. And that's lesson number one. And that's lesson number one. And that's lesson number one.
So that's lesson number one. Of course it is. That's rule number one. You do not trust the political elite. Do so at your peril. And Willie McRae, in my own view, lost his life for sending out that warning. And he clearly stumbled across something that was deemed to give him an expiry date. A precise expiry date. And judging by the rummaging of his car, they probably found what they were looking for and took Willie McRae out at the same time. I'm unsure what he stumbled onto, but I reckon it was in to do with the nuclear weapons, because he was big involved with that. So I know also in the drug. Well, he wasn't a drug dealer, but not that I know of. But he did know people connected in the drug industry because they had kind of turned to him, which is a bit weird, to try and get help, basically. And I kind of get the feeling that Willie might have stumbled on something relating to the supply of drugs to Scotland that might have involved or indicated that the government themselves were behind the majority of hardcore drugs that get flooded into this wee island. The government. Now, that could be wrong, but the bottom line is they took the guy out. He's not here today, and he did not commit suicide. No chance. And he even said to his wife or one of his great friends at the time, he said, I've got them. I've got them. They can't get out of this. I've got them, he said. And he was buzzing about it. He said, I've got them. And he had a bit of paper in his hand, she said. So what did he get them on? Whatever it was, they knew. They found out that he had that information and they paid him a visit. So let's see if we can get back to it. Because, yeah, we got thrown off. We got kicked out. They didn't like it. Now there's several in this document, so we might not get through all of them. But I'll try and get through a few more before we kind of move on. Let me just make sure we're working. Right, so how do I make it the full screen again? Right. So yeah, just to kind of recap on that last bitty on Sharif. So he was at a hotel in Bristol that he'd spent a night in with other people from the BA group. So he wasn't even in his hometown, but he decided to commit suicide that night with a pocket full of big money, which seemed to have disappeared. I mean, what the hell's happened there, right? That one I'm unsure what to make of it. Were they paying these guys money out with the bonus cash for high security jobs that they were doing? Why was he walking about with a big wad of cash? I find that a bit strange, excuse me, as I belch. I'm trying to find. So Sharif had also worked at British Aerospace on guided weapons technology. Verdict, suicide, of course. Of course. So January 1987. Richard, is it Poe? We'll go with Richard, right? 37. MOD computer consultant and digital communications expert. Found dead in his flat with his feet bound and a plastic bag over his head. Rope was tied around his body, coiling 4 times around his neck. 4. Verdict, accident. An accident. Dead in his flat, feet bound, plastic bag over his head. Rope was tied around his body, coiling not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times around his neck. And that's deemed to be an accident. What happened there exactly to make that deemable to be an accident? I mean, that is staggering, that, man. You're clearly dealing with a killing machine that has severe power, severe weight. Big time. This is not a small time gang or just a random dude on a killing spree. No. Definitely not. So, January 12th, 1987, John Britton, 52, scientist formerly engaged in top secret work at the Royal College of Military Science in Shrivenham, and later deployed in the research department at the MOD. Busy man, right? He was at one point. Death by carbon monoxide poisoning in his own garage, shortly after returning from a trip to the US in connection with his work. Verdict: accident. Of course. So not long back after his trip to America. Yeah, he must have said the wrong thing on that trip to come back and get rubbed out. In the baddest way possible. February 1987, David Skeels, 43, engineer with Marconi, found dead in his car with a hose pipe connected to the exhaust. Verdict: open. I mean, that sounds more like a suicide than half of the suicides that we just talked about. And this one's still open. February 1987, again. Staggering, man. Absolutely staggering. Victor Moore, 46, design engineer with Marconi Space and Defense even Systems, died from an overdose. Verdict: suicide. Bit of a common theme here, right? February 1987, Peter Peepel? Peter Peepel. Yeah, it shows my maturity, right? 46, scientist at the Royal College of Military Science. Shock horror. He had been working on testing titanium for its resistance to explosives and the use of computer analysis in signals from metals. Peter. What did thy done, Peter Peepel? I wonder. Do you not think as well, if some of these people were so beat up that they wanted to end their life because of the work they were doing, do you not think they might give the game away by leaving a note saying, look, this is why I've done it, because this is what they're doing? But of course, no. None of that, right? Yeah. So, resistance to explosives and the use of computer analysis of signals from metals. Computer analysis of signals from metals. I mean, that's caught my attention, that. found dead, allegedly from carbon monoxide poisoning in his Oxfordshire garage. The circumstances of his death raised some elements of doubt. His wife had found him on his back with his head parallel to the rear car bumper and his mouth in line with the exhaust pipe. Where it was going. Well, you could see where it was going. Let's face it, right? But I mean, that just sounds. I don't even think you could do that. With the car engine running, police were apparently baffled as to how he could have maneuvered into the position in which he was found. And I think we did see an image of it, a drawing of how he would have been in the documentary. And it seemed pretty much impossible to do it while the door was closed and he like slid under the car and attached his mouth to the exhaust pipe. No way can I buy that. I'm sorry, but no way. I mean, the coroner's verdict open. It would be interesting to see what the autopsy from that had to say. What was the cause of death? Because I'd imagine it would be not carbon monoxide poisoning that killed him. Or maybe he was forced on it. It's one that is truly baffling. I'm kind of bemused at how they done it. But I guess that's why they're experts at taking people out and we're not. Well, at least I'm not. Maybe some of you are, right? Who knows? We've got lots of different people here, which is great. All kinds of people. Diversity. We've got diversity, right? We've got a great bunch of people. I can't go to the chat just now, but my phone passed away, so I can't see it, but we do, and I probably don't thank the community enough. Everybody that engages over the years, even new people of late, other content creators that help out, like Sensum, our English brother, DJ doing his own thing, fighting the absolute insanity that is this nation that I live in. It is fucking mental, man. Absolutely insane. I cannot stress that enough. You would not believe it. This nation has not only went over the cliff, it has exploded. And it pains me to say it, man. It is finished. We got sold out time and time, again and again, by liars, false prophets, people who claimed to be of the people. Well, clearly not. Clearly not. So we've got people here, we've got people in the different communities that, yeah, we're still on it. We still care. We're still going to keep going. We're still going to keep fighting. And we hopefully do it together and put a bit of a dent in these buggers. Let's go with that. I'm trying not to swear. It's hard, man. It's bloody hard, right? And bloody's not a swear word. I'm not having it. So April 1987, George Countess? Is that not a swear word? George Contis, systems analyst at Bristol Polytechnic, drowned on the same day as Shania Warren, who we're going to see below, as the result of a car accident, his upturned car being found in the River Mersey, Liverpool. Our good brother Toffee, he might have heard of this. Although I think Toffee, being similar ages with me, would have been born in either 1987 or 1988. If he's about, he can let us know, right? Maybe that's too much. We've gave away too much information now. But I think we're about similar ages. But yeah, in Liverpool. Verdict, misadventure. Misadventure? I don't know if you could call it that. I've had a few misadventures in my time, but nothing with this sort of outcome. So Kuntis's sister called for a fresh inquest as she thought things did not add up. Yeah. I bet they didn't add up. I bet they didn't. Excuse me. We'll read a few more and then we'll jump on to the next part. April 10, 1987. Is it Shanae Warren, 26. Personal assistant in a company called Microscope, which was taken over, and they're good at takeovers and mergers, by the way, or they were, by GEC-Marconi less than 4 weeks after her death. And this is a common thread as well. Found drowned in 45 centimeters of water, not far from the site of David Greenhaw's death fall. Warren died exactly 1 week after the death of Stuart Gooding and serious injury to Greenhaw. Haw? I don't know. She was found gagged with a noose around her neck. Her feet were also bound and her hands tied behind her back. Verdict open. Yeah, a bit of a far cry to call that one suicide, right? It was said that Warren had gagged herself, tied her feet with rope, then tied her hands behind her back and hobbled to the lake in stiletto heels to drown herself. Wow. I mean, that is... How can that not be deemed as suspicious or murder? I mean, that is insanity, that, right? Honest to God, man. I mean, that's got to be impossible. Hey, I know people can be double jointed and move in certain ways that most of us can't, but this, nah, come on. Come on. And all to what exactly? Commit suicide? All that? It's bloody sickening, man. Honest to God. What a shame. 26 years of age. A young woman. Her whole life ahead of her, pretty much. Well, life expectancy. Not so bad for females, but for white males, it's not great. It is not great. So, April 10, 1987, Stuart Gooding, 23. Postgraduate research student at the Royal College of Military Science. Again. Fatal car crash while on holiday in Cyprus. The death occurred at the same time as college personnel were carrying out exercises on Cyprus. Really? Accident. A bit suspicious, that one, right? Oh, we were carrying out a drill at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. Sound familiar? I shouldn't laugh, but I bet it does. Mark Weisner, 24, April 24th, 1987, software engineer at the MOD, found dead in a house shared with 2 colleagues. He was found with a plastic sack around his head and several feet of cling film around his face. The method of death was almost identical to that of Richard Pugh some 3 months earlier. Coroner's verdict, accident. An accident, man. Wow. I mean, that is quite staggering. And that. Who was the coroner? Ah, don't tell me. Don't tell me. It was bloody Stevie Wonder again. Why did he keep getting Stevie to carry out all these difficult tasks? Did they not know that his vision is not great? Or is it great? Maybe it is. Yeah, let's not get into that. Who have we got here? I want to see if we can find a one or two of note. May the 3rd, 1987, Michael Baker, 22. Digital communications expert working on defence project at Paisley. Part-time member of Signals Corps SAS. Wow. Fatal accident when his car crashed through a barrier near Poole in Dorset. Misadventure again. 22. SAS. Digital communications. Yeah. A bit of... He sounds like an agent, that guy. Right? Maybe they were all working for the government in some way or another, secretly. I mean, it kind of points to the company being the main sort of, I guess, name that we could point to for being behind it. But I think it's anything the company is doing is probably for the powers that be, I would imagine. So, June 1987, Jennings Frank, 60, electronic weapons engineer, found dead from a heart attack. No inquest. Of course. 1988, Russell Smith, 23, laboratory technician with the Atomic Energy Research in Essex, died as a result of a cliff fall in Cornwall. Suicide. I guess you would pick them cliffs, the Cornwall. Is that the White Cliffs, or is that not Cornwall? That's Dorset, is it? Or Dover? Check me, you'd think I stayed in Australia. It shows you how much I know, right? Of course, England is not Scotland. Let's remember. So, yeah, suicide. We can't really look into that too much. There's not a lot on it. I wouldn't rule out suicide, working on atomic energy. But at 23, though, at 23 years of age, I mean, would that not be more misadventure rather than suicide if you drove off a cliff, maybe accidentally? It's Dover. See, I knew I was wrong, so I'm not too bad then, right? I knew I was wrong, and then I think I did say Dover. It shows you how much I know. Get them off! Don't worry, we're getting there, kind of. We're at least touching base with it today. tonight. March 25th, 1988, Trevor Knight, 52, computer engineer with Marconi Space and Defense Systems. Huh? Mm-hmm. Not NASA? Maybe. Do you know that Germany, the German space company, at one point it was called DASA? Did people know that? I mean, that cracked me up, man. DASA. And we've got what? NASA? DASA and NASA, but they're two different entities. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not like we took the Nazis to NASA. Don't be silly. That would be crazy. Sure, let's go with that. So, computer engineer with Marconi Space and Defense Systems, Stanmore, Middlesex, I think. Look, me and geography are not good, right? And me and anything are not good. Found dead in his home in Harpden, Hertfordshire. Are we going with that? At the wheel of his car with a hose pipe connected to the exhaust. A St. Albans coroner said that Knight's woman friend, Miss Narmada Thankai, the heck, who also worked with him at Marconi, had found 3 suicide notes. Now we're getting notes now in 1988. It took a while, but we got there. 3 suicide notes left by him, which made clear his intentions, right? Miss Fankai had mentioned that Knight disliked his work, but she did not think it was enough. He disliked it enough to commit suicide, is what it should say, I think. Yeah. She did not detect any depression that would have driven him to suicide. Coroner's verdict, suicide. Of course. The next one, Alistair Beckham, who we mentioned in the documentary. I mean, that is one. It sounds bloody horrific, man. Honest to God, this is the guy who put a peephole in his door, which aroused a bit of suspicion from his wife. Like, why are you putting a peephole in the door? What are you up to in that shed, right? You don't want to know. Yeah, you probably don't want to know. Because knowing in this Marconi game could be fatal by the looks of it. And I mean, this one, I really find it astonishing, man. So found dead after being electrocuted in his garden shed with wires connected to his body. And his kid found him. His kid. His own kid found him. Open, yeah. They wouldn't be putting that to suicide because it fucking wasn't. Honestly, man. Unreal. Andrew Hall, 33, September 1988, British aerospace engineer. Carbon monoxide poisoning in a car with a hose pipe connected to the exhaust. Suicide. The above list compiled by Raymond A. Robinson in The Alien Intent, a dire warning. Link attached. Note, link above is dead. Oh, well, that's a surprise, that, right? Doctor, we're going into the 90s now, and I think we've sort of came out of the scientist into the microbiologist. Dr. Jihad al-Abdabi. Me. We'll go with that. Veterinary mycoplasma, and had worked with various mycoplasmas in the 1980s at Plum Island. Now that we will remember. Right? Remember, because we'll be getting back to that at some point. He was killed in his native Iraq while he was changing a flat tire and hit by a truck. I'm surprised they never put verdict suicide. Right? Would that be too far, maybe? Maybe. Now I want to kind of maybe speed up a bit. So what I'll do is, because I want people to have this as a link, is I'll share the link in the chat. And then we'll jump on from that. But I mean, yeah, staggering, right? Pretty staggering stuff. Mind-blowing. Heartbreaking as well. All the emotions, man. All the emotions. The whole day I've been angry thinking about these entities and contemplating, is it a good idea to be talking about this? Too late, right? Too late. The cat's out the bag now. The cat's out the bag. And yeah, fear not, want not. So, indeed, Frank the Tank is on it like a car bonnet. And that is probably something we'll get into. The Lyme's disease, the ticks, and Plum Island, because we've actually mentioned Plum Island before, but it was briefly. I can't remember. I think it might have been in a Rockefeller live stream that we did. I'm unsure. It's failing me now, but we definitely mentioned it. I mean, it's a name that you probably won't forget. Plum Island. A bit like Jekyll Island. Yeah, it's not a name you forget. And we certainly know a wee bit or two about Jekyll Island. For most definite. And it's not good, I can assure you. So what I'll do is I'll take you now to... Can I share my screen? Stop. Present. Because we're kind of pushing it for time. Which is a bit awkward. Typical, right? It's because it takes so long. I can't help it. I can't get the staff, man. You can't. You simply can't. So I reckon we'll go to... Marconi for to start off, right? So, up until about maybe a few days ago, I don't think I had ever heard of Marconi. The name stems from an actual person who I'm not even going to pronounce his first name, but there he goes there. An electrical engineer and an Italian inventor who pretty much invented the telegraph system. The first one, I think, got used that he made, and I think it got used between London and the Vatican. Shock horror. In fact, I think the Vatican funded it. So he is an individual that we've clocked. He's on the Talbanaki list, and we will likely get into him at some point in the future, right? Maybe in part 2. So Marconi Electronic Systems, or MES, or General Electric Company, Marconi, as it was until 1998, was the defense arm of General Electric Company. It was demerged from General Electric and bought by British Aerospace. Shock horror. On the 30th of November 1999 to form BAE Systems. Wow, thank God they did, right? Yeah, fantastic. Sure. GEC then renamed itself Marconi PLC. MSE exists today as BAE Systems Electronics Limited. That's what the beast went on to become. British Aerospace. A subsidiary of BAE Systems, but the assets were rearranged elsewhere within the company. MES-related businesses included BAE Systems Submarine Solutions, BAE Systems Surface Ship, BAE Systems In Style, and Celex ES. Jack of all trades, right? Yeah. What's going on here? What have I done? Why? There we go. So it became BAE. I hate having to say BAE for some reason. I just can't. I hate it. I call it BA. So BA, we'll call it that. It became BA. And I mean that, if you know anything about BA, this will not surprise you that Marconi pretty much became it. And names change and CEOs come and go, but the agenda always stays the fucking same. Guaranteed. Mergers and demergers and substitute companies and sub companies, then offlets, then mergers again, then new companies. But the same fucking product. So if we go to, I think it could be, so from this you get a look at some of the equipment. Torpedoes, Eurofighter Typhoon radars, battlefield artillery target engagement systems. And I mean, it's not, who would want to work in that, man? Honestly, you wouldn't, right? Knowing that you'd go home that night and watch the news and see, I don't know, Israel using the rocket that you just built and building up to pieces that innocent people in it, most likely, because that's who, it's always the innocent that suffer without fail. So I want to take you to General Electric, which is the arm of Marconi, or vice versa. It's the parent. We'll call it that, right? Can I jump straight to it from here, which might be easier? Or is that going to break the system? I'm good at doing that. Yeah, I think we're all good. If you look at the GEC, there we go. What do people see there in the logo? Founded 1886, the year John was born. defunct 1999. Fate. Defence arm bought by British Aerospace. Hooray! But yeah, when I seen that, I could see sixes. That was pretty much all I could see. And I thought, yeah, kind of fitting, to be honest, going by the company. But if we glide down to, see, not to be confused with the American General Electric, who were some of the first entities to trial out weather modification. Then it got taken over by the Pentagon. Hooray! We are not worthy, right? Let's go with that. So if I take you down to downtown, why can I not find it? Oh man. Let's see. I think we could be down here. Yeah. Because it's the 80s, right? The 80s. The 80s. Do we know what song that is? Quite a catchy song. They know how to get you with these catchy songs, right? That pop into your head out of nowhere as well, a lot of the time. Like some sort of, I don't know, brainwashing technique. Could we, we'll go with that, programming technique, maybe. So in April 1981, General Electric Company acquired Cincinnati Electronics in Cincinnati, funnily enough. Ohio. Do we not have people from Ohio here? Is it Cincinnati? Maybe not. At the time owned by George J. Mealy, CE, General Electric was a leader in military radios and infrared technology. Space electronics. Huh? Space electro. What the hell could that be? Space electronics. I'd like to see these. Space electronics, right? Yeah, like the Sensum's magnificent space ghost shark. Yeah, we'll go with that. And other high security products doing business throughout the world. Yeah, right across the board, eh? No boundaries, no borders, no barriers. Infrared technology, radio equipment, space electronics, high security product. What could that be, do you think? What would you deem a high security product? A taser? Pepper spray? A missile? A gun? In 1981, General Electric Company acquired Picker Corporation, an American manufacturer of medical imaging equipment. General Electric merged Picker with Cambridge Instruments, General Electric Medical and American Optical to form Picker International PI. See what I mean about all the mergers and joining and shape-shifting? But the product, the agenda, is always the same. General Electric Medical was itself an amalgamation of Watson and Sons Limited, formed in the early 20th century in London, and long a part of General Electric Company. They eat up the wee fish, right? They eat you up. You get it? and A.E. Dean and Co. of Croydon. In 1982, PI introduced the first 1-point IT magnetic resonance imaging MRI unit. In 1998, it acquired the CT division of Elskint. In 1999, the company changed its name to Marconi Medical Systems. In 2001, Philips bought Marconi Medical Systems for $1.1 billion. So we're getting a bit more, we're learning more about the nature of the beast here. Okay. General Electric had become the UK's largest and most successful company and private employer, with about 250,000 employees. No restriction might be a better way to put it. In 1985, General Electric Company acquired Yarrow Shipbuilders from British Shipbuilders. In 1988, General Electric Plesley Telecommunications GPT was created when GEC bought Plesley and then killed 2 of their employees. The following year, General Electric and Siemens, yeah, now we're talking, right? Formed a joint company, GEC Siemens PLC. The takeover Plesley. As part of the deal, General Electric took control of Plesley's Evinox, we'll go with that, and naval systems business. Right, Siemens now in on the act. Okay, that's definitely worth of note. In early 1989, General Electric and French company Alstom merged their power generation and transport business in a new joint venture, GEC Alstom. Wow. In May 1989, Alstom bought British rail vehicle manufacturer Metro Cammell. We'll go with that. So by the mid-1990s, General Electric was making profits of 1 billion, had cash reserves of 3 billion, and was valued at 10 billion. The move towards electronics and modern technology, particularly in the defense sector, was a departure from the domestic electrical goods market. Yeah. But they never left it completely, right? General Electric Company acquired the Edinburgh-based Fernati Defence Systems Group in 1990, as well as part of Fernati International's assets in Italy. It also bought Vickers Shipbuilding and Engineering in 1995, which is VSE. VSE was willing to participate in a merger with a larger company to reduce its its exposure in cycles in warship production, particularly in light of the post-Cold War Options for Change Defense Review, following General Electric Company's purchase, VSE became Marconi Marine. Yeah, you see how it just chops and changes and moves about? So you're kind of like left. They go so far, merge, join, reevaluate, and go again as a new company, a new holding, a new PLC. In July 1998, reports began linking British aerospace with the German aerospace group DASA. Wait, what? NASA? No, DASA. Oh, but NASA. No, not NASA. DASA. Not to be confused with NASA, sure. To create a new European aerospace and defense company. Wow. General Electric Company was also seen as a potential partner for a freeway merger with BA and DASA. Wow. Ain't that something, right? BA, DASA, and General Electric Company. Talk about giving the game away, man. Honestly. Yeah. In December 1998, reports emerged that General Electric Company was seeking a partner for MES, the value of which was greatly increased by the tractor acquisition. Prospective partners included Thompson CSF, which by 1998 was on the path to privatization. Thompson CSF, French company, electronics and aerospace. Okay. Okay, noted. And various American defense contractors, e.g. Lockheed Martin. Shock horror. So again, and we're basically just touching the surface at the moment. But we've got talk of Siemens there, which we probably will get into in part 2. Because there is a few things to be said about Siemens today. But not just Siemens. Prior to the collapse of Marconi Group in 2005 and 2006, the company was a major supplier of transfer mode and Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, and Internet Protocol products. The Internet, the Ethernet. The majority of Marconi Corporation's businesses, including Marconi Communications and the rights to Marconi name, were sold to Ericsson in 2005. And the remainder was renamed Telent PLC. So they branched off. It branched off, basically, in my view, it branched off in 3 ways. It branched off into BA, British Aerospace, Siemens, and Ericsson. So I'll take you now to another part, and then we'll touch on a wee bit about NATO. Let me see. Stop screen. Ah, we've stopped screen. Share screen. We're getting there though, right? We are we are getting there slowly but surely, one day at a time. What did they say? Rome was not built in a day. Let's go with that. So what is the right one? That one. Is it? We'll go with it anyway, right? So Ericsson. Of course. I think I had an Ericsson phone. I think it was my first phone. And it would have been about maybe, I don't know, 99, 2001. Maybe it was maybe 98 actually. It was a big black Vodafone Ericsson mobile phone. All you could do is phone and text. That was it. And that was good enough, let's face it. It was fine. There was no need to even add a stupid wee game like Snake on the Nokia. But I remember the Ericsson, Vodafone Ericsson. It was a small black, quite chunky phone, and it had an aerial as well that you could take off and put on. And if you threw it at someone, you'd probably knock them out. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, in terms of battery life and everything like that, fantastic. You can't say that today for mobile phones because it's not just about the texting and phoning. It is hooked up to every single bloody thing you can imagine now. It's crazy, man. Insane to think about how far the mobile phone has went in the way of intruding in people's lives and becoming a necessity when it shouldn't be. It simply should not be. But again, that's the world they're building. It's not the world. It's not like the people got together and decided, look, this is the world we want, because we didn't. If we did, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. Without me getting too angry. I'm trying to contain myself because we're running low on time. Which is nothing new. So, Ericsson selected for US DoD 5G testing, October 9th, 2020. The DoD announced it is awarding a $600 million contract for 5G experimentation at five military test sites. Ericsson has been selected, shock horror, as a key partner for the 5G project, representing the largest full-scale 5G tests for dual-use applications in the world. Shock horror. Projects will include piloting 5G-enabled augmented virtual reality for missions planning and training, testing 5G-enabled smart warehouses, and evaluating 5G technologies to enhance distributed command and control. Right. Command and control. A smart warehouse. So I'd imagine that's what a smart warehouse is. A warehouse that you can point an iPad at. Wow! Hooray for technology! We are not worthy. It's fascinating, right? So that's the sort of thing you're talking about Ericsson is involved with today. They're big on the military contracts. Well, £600 million dollar contract. The test sites named are Hill Air Force Base, Utah, Utah? Utah? We'll go with Utah. Joint Base Lewis McCord, Washington. Marine Corps Logistics Base Albania. We'll go with that. Georgia. Naval Base San Diego, California. And Nellis Air Force Base, Los Angeles, Nevada. Interesting. And if you look here, 5G sites, antenna system solution. Yeah, got the solution right. Of course. Of course they do. The good guys. High performing, resilient, and secure connectivity for not you, but the government. Hooray! Thank you, Ericsson. Yeah, maybe not. The journey to mission critical 5G. So it would appear that Ericsson are big on the 5G, which I would imagine Marconi going back was in the process of getting to this stage that we're at today, because they talk about how, well, in the 80s, the technology, electronic warfare technology, they were talking about it like it was decades away. Well, decades have passed. So chances are it's here now, unfortunately, for us. But I'll take you now because I'm trying to speed up. Let me see if I can take you quickly. It's tough because there's so much, man. There is so much to cover and get into. Just on this sort of Marconi agenda, if we can call it that. Where did I want to go to there? Yeah, I think we will go here to this NATO document. Well, first of all, I'll show you a bit of what we could probably call evidence. So I need to get rid of that and do it again. Which would be this document here. VLF, minimum shift keying for submarine communications. Anyone read this? Oh, you did? Where's Frank? He's probably read it. Maybe Sensum did. I get the feeling Sensum might have worked in submarines at some point. So Marconi, General Electric Marconi, secure systems, radio, radar. You can tell I'm well glued up on this stuff, right? Frequency radar stuff, electromagnetic equipment, right? On what would appear to be submarines, but so this is a General Electric Marconi document, and it is dated 1993. And in this document, you can clearly see that a lot of their equipment is manufactured for the use by NATO. It's deployed and developed for NATO. So the guy who committed suicide that was having secret meetings with NATO for Marconi. Was it NATO who made the call? This is what I mean by it's tough, because there's multiple people or multiple entities that could be behind this. And of course, in the end, it suits all of them, I'd imagine. So we know they were working with NATO, even though a lot of it was kept secret at the time. And none of the staff, I don't think, were allowed to talk about it. If they did, they probably ended up in the river. But you can clearly see their equipment was produced for NATO purposes. Right? So we've got that. We know that. So I'll take you back now to the NATO document. If I can work the bloody screen. And yeah, it's not working. Here we go. What one was it again? I think it might have been that one. So here we've got an online Defence Planning Committee document, Brussels, the 10th of December, 1980. So just as it kind of all kicked off with the suicides, right? If we can call it that. Comical to call it that. So we've got a NATO document here. So what do I want to point out? You're asking, right? The Russians have got super duper electric power. We need it. So that's the kind of cry from NATO. The Russians are the enemy. Right, but I want to point out this in particular to kind of cut stuff a wee bit short. Paragraph 6. Within this force planning process, ministers welcomed progress on the implementation of a long-term defence programme. And the fact that it was now well set to achieve its broad aims of enabling NATO forces to meet the challenging defence needs of the 1980s and beyond. To infinity and beyond. They noted that progress had been achieved and would continue in the readiness, maritime and communications, command and control programs. They also noted that the first phase of the air defense program, which was endorsed in December 1979, was now making good progress. These represent a significant enhancement of alliance capability. They pledged their support for sustained efforts, particularly in the fields of electronic warfare and consumer logistics. Electronic warfare. Yeah, electronic warfare. There is another bit I wanted to point out here, but now I can't find. And it's typical when you're trying to be quick and you end up taking longer. The story of my life, that man. But yeah, so NATO clearly had a program in play. And my kind of hunch at the moment would be the people who are in the document of suspicious deaths. I think they were not only working for Marconi, but also NATO. Hence the big wad of money. that one of them had. And I think NATO took out anybody who was deemed unfit for purpose or risky. And at this moment, that would be my conclusion on that. But we do also know that from the documentary and other information that Marconi also were working with the American government on what was called Operation Star Wars. More aerospace nonsense. It's like a circus, right? So I want to take you to, before we kind of finish off, I want to take you to now. Is it that? I don't know, is it? I think it might be. The Star Wars document. Yeah, so a lot of people kind of put it down to involvement with this. Ballistic nuclear weapons, missiles, submarines. I'm thinking more the electronic warfare in the way of silent weapons, if you like, rather than a ballistic missile. Right. And I mean, yeah, this is, yeah. The Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, nicknamed the Star Wars program, was a proposed missile defense system intended to protect the United States from attack by ballistic strategic nuclear weapons. The concept was announced on March 23rd, 1983 by President Ronald Reagan, a vocal critic of the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, which he described as, quote, a suicide pact, close quote. Reagan called upon American scientists and engineers to develop a system that would render nuclear weapons obsolete. Elements of the program re-emerged in 2019 with the Space Development Agency. So, no matter who goes in or out the door, the agenda stays the same. Shock horror. The Strategic Defense Initiative Organization was set up in 1984 within the US Department of Defense to oversee development a wide array of advanced weapon concepts, including lasers, particle beam weapons, and ground and space-based missile systems were studied, along with various sensor, command and control, and high-performance computer systems that would be needed to control a system consisting of hundreds of combat centers and satellites spanning the entire globe and involved in a very short battle. The United States holds a significant advantage in the field of comprehensive advanced missile defense systems through decades of extensive research and testing. A number of these concepts and obtained technologies and insights were transferred to subsequent programs. I bet they were. I bet they were. Of course. Yeah, what the bloody hell happened there? Bugger off. Yeah, so interesting, right? Under the SDIO's Innovative Sciences and Technology Office, headed by physicist and engineer Dr. James Lawson, the investment was predominantly made in basic research at national laboratories, universities, and in industry. These programs have continued to be key sources of funding for top research scientists in the field of high energy physics, supercomputing, computation, advanced materials, and many other critical science and engineering disciplines, and funding which indirectly supports other research work by top scientists. Huh. Top, very top, right? Yeah. There's another bit I want to point out here. Yeah. SDI was controversial in some sectors and was criticized for threatening to destabilize the MAD approach, potentially rendering the Soviet nuclear arsenal useless and to possibly reignite, quote, an offensive arms race, close quote. We didn't want that now, would you? Through declassified papers of American intelligence agencies, the wider implications and effects of the program were examined and revealed that due to the potential neutralization of its arsenal and resulting loss of balancing power factor, SDI was a cause of grave concern for the Soviet Union and her primary successor state, Russia. By the early 1990s, with the Cold War ending and nuclear arsenals being rapidly reduced, political support for SDI collapsed. SDI officially ended in 1993 when the Clinton administration redirected the efforts towards theater ballistic missiles and renamed the agency the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization. In 2019, space-based interceptor development resumed for the first time in 25 years with the knight in shining armor, President Trump's signing of the National Defense Authorization Act. We are not worthy. The program is currently managed by the Space Development Agency, SDA, as part of their new National Defense Space Architecture, NDSA, envisioned by Michael D. Griffin. Early development contracts were awarded to L3 Harris and shock horror SpaceX. CIA Director Mike Pompeo called for additional funding, more money, to achieve a full-fledged, quote, strategic defense initiative for our time. Yeah. Yeah. There is maybe one more bit that I want to point out. So, I think it might be... Yeah. If you look here, we've got ARPA. ARPA? Oh, DARPA. Of course, yeah. ARPA. DARPA seemed to have been, I reckon, pulling the strings of a lot of these companies. by the sounds of it. Electromagnetic warfare, even a psychological aspect to it, which is mentioned, but I'm struggling to find it at the moment. I could be looking in the wrong place. What I'll do is I'll quickly, before we call it a day, I'll jump back to, because we're over midnight now. And my wife will, yeah, I'm going to be, she didn't laugh, right? I'm going to be like one of these dudes, man. Yeah, he left a note here, look, in my wife's handwriting. Yeah, you get the point, right? Was it that one I showed, but it was meant to be a different one, maybe? So I guess just maybe finally back onto a NATO document. NATO's security operations in electronic warfare. The policy of cyber defense and the alliance's new strategic concept. 2009 Journal of Information Warfare. A PDF that you can download and keep it all for yourself. Yeah. So if we look at this just quickly, I'm not going to find it now, am I? Just to give a wee bit more detail on NATO. NATO. Information warfare and electronic warfare. Sounds great, right? A fundamental concept of information warfare is that information has value. Denning, 1999. Yeah, data, right? There's gold in data. There's gold in information. There's gold sometimes in knowing. As such, to achieve information dominance. What? Adversaries need to be denied the information that has value to them, or the means to exploit it, whilst ensuring friendly information is secure. Right, of course. Yeah. Therefore, information warfare can be defined as, quote, all actions taken to defend the military's information-based processes, information systems and communications networks, and to destroy, neutralize, or exploit the enemy's similar capabilities within physical, information, and cognitive domains. Anyone want to have a crack at that? Sound good? Yeah, sounds horrid. Command and control warfare, which protects the ability to effectively command and control forces while attempting to hinder the opposition's command and control. Intelligence-based warfare attempts to maximize the intelligence gathering, assessment, and dissemination capabilities and degrade even those of the opposition. Information infrastructure warfare, where the aim is protect the information infrastructure whilst attacking or exploiting the oppositions. Electronic warfare prevents the opposition's use of the electromagnetic spectrum whilst preserving its ability for friendly use. I wonder what kind of technology they would use for that. to control the electromagnetic spectrum. Anyone want to have a crack at that? What do you think could maybe play a part in doing such a job? Anybody? I'll give you some time because I can't see I can't see the comments anyway. So, where did I get to there? I'm on the wrong bloody one. Ah, there we go. I'm not. Information infrastructure. What one did I get to? I don't even know. I think maybe to that one. Electronic warfare prevents the opposition's use of the electromagnetic spectrum. And what came to my mind with that this morning would have been, well, yesterday now, would have been, it's failing me now. Fuck, it's late. HARP, that's what it would have been. But of course, they don't do HARP anymore. That's a conspiracy theory, right? Sure, let's go with that. Network warfare protects the information networks and attacks or exploits the opposition's information networks and psychological operations, which are planned and coordinated activities to influence the emotions, reasoning, and behavior of an audience to further the objectives. Huh. Right. Yeah. Psychological operations. PSYOPs. Wow. Yeah. And we're kind of going to have to leave it there for today. I think that's enough to chew on for the time being. Totally coincidental. Nothing to see here. There's nothing rotten here. Don't be silly. Don't worry about it. Right? Totally fine. And of course, nothing like this would be happening today. Right? It's not like NATO's still a... Wait, what? Oh, okay. Maybe not then, right? So I think next time when we get back to this at some point in the future, it'll be a bit more detail in the way of the companies and possibly some of the individuals. I kind of want to find out a wee bit more about them, who they were, and maybe get an idea as to what they might have known that they maybe shouldn't have known. I'm hoping to maybe find out a wee bit more about some of their lives leading up to the quote-unquote suicide. So what do people make of that? I'm unsure. It's quite a lot, right? It's quite grim. It's quite grim. Let me see if I can jump back. Remove. We went 3.5 hours nearly, so I do apologize. It's a lot, right? There's a lot to cover. And I kind of think that the British government, along with the American government, are basically behind these deaths. That would be my point. I couldn't prove otherwise, but going by the information and the evidence that I've seen, these people, one or two of them you can put down to suicide. A lot of them you can't. It would be a mistake to put these down to a coincidence, man. Some of them being only days apart. Very similar as well. And very similar with previous espionage killings that have happened involving either the British government or the American government. And of course, they don't work when it comes to these secret services, they don't work for Britain. They don't work for America. They don't work for the people. They work for the powers that be. Not us. Not a chance. Not a hope in hell. And if you're any good at fucking hell, electromagnetic warfare, and you fancy a job with, I don't know, Siemens, or actually I nearly worked for Siemens at one point. For Siemens, or let's say Lockheed Martin, you might want to think again. But of course, money, right? Yeah, cash. The big paycheck, the big house, the beautiful car, the supermodel wife. Yay, money, money, money. Big wad of cash. Yeah, that's how they get them, of course. And then, by the looks of it, they take them out. So if you're considering that big jump into the big company, the big pond, and the big money, you might want to be content with where you are. Don't do it, right? Don't get involved with these companies, man. They are brutal. I mean, it's common knowledge that business is cutthroat. And they don't say that for no reason. A lot of people out there, they'll do anything to make money. And I know we all know that, but they will literally do anything. But there you go. That's people, right? What a bunch of bastards. IT crowd reference that. Ah, people. What can you do? Can't live with them, can't live without them. So that's, I think, for part one on the scientists' mysterious deaths. I think we've touched base and we've kind of thrown up a bit of information in regards to Marconi, General Electric, the Star Wars. We've at least touched base with it. So next time when I get into it a bit more, maybe, it won't be, what is he talking about? What's Marconi? So if you've missed any of it, rewind it, right? Eject and rewind, right? Do we still get that? Probably not. We'll jump into the comments and we'll wind it down before I get a bollocking from my wife. When am I going to be back again? I think maybe college work most of this week. Well, the remaining of it. So it might be Friday or Friday or Sunday. If the football gets cancelled, it could be Saturday, right? But if it's not, then I'm not going to be in any fit state to be doing anything except from shouting abuse at people. I'm quite good at that, especially when it's a referee. We'll go with that, or an opposition. It's a good chance for me to let off a bit of steam at the football. I can go around strangling people. Not quite that, but yeah, I can release a bit of steam without sounding weird. I can let off a bit of steam at the football. And it gives me a bit of a release. Not in the sense of a hooligan who waits for a Saturday to go out and beat people up. I couldn't. I simply couldn't, to be honest. Hey, if they do the wrong thing, then yeah. But, and I've said this before, I knew early on in my I must have been about 11 years of age, and I was a registered amateur boxer, and I hurt a guy. I mean, I never hurt. I'm not the toughest of guys, but I was quite a good natural boxer. So I was told anyway, from quite a few good, respected coaches. So and I mean, my dad was a coach, so I was well trained from the age of about 8. But I had to wait to get registered. I was too young, 8, 9, 10. I think 11, I finally got registered as Scottish Amateur Boxing. And I think about my third bout, I hurt a guy, and I thought, oh, no, I hope he's okay. And then I started thinking then, do you know what? I can't do it. I just can't. I mean, it's a competitive sport, and I like being competitive, but I don't like hurting people. They would have to fucking cross the line. And don't get me wrong, when they cross the line, fucking look out, man. But if they don't, I can't bring myself to put pain upon another human being without just cause or reason, even if there is such a thing as just cause for causing pain. I think a lot of the time it's done out of anger, from experience anyway. But I mean, I knew at a very young age, look, that's not for me. And a lot of the people got shocked at the boxing because I was, well, kind of tipped for going on and maybe even going pro in the future, given that I'd pretty much boxed from cradle to teenage years, fighting my brothers, right? But I couldn't. It wouldn't matter if I was the greatest boxer in the world. The simple fact was I did not like hurting people. I mean, the guy was fine. He was totally fine. But it was in the moment, it was like, nah, do you know what? I can't do it. And I think my dad was a wee bit disappointed, but he respected it. And I wanted to maybe concentrate more on my football. At least that was my excuse. And of course, me being me, the concentration went on not so much football, but women and alcohol and stuff you're not meant to take. And I mean, this stream, I can't see it getting a strike. But when you're talking about the stuff we've just talked about, it certainly won't get promoted and it won't get monetized or anything like that, which is fine. I mean, we're deemed a harmful, dangerous channel anyway. We're the boogeyman. Us. We're the boogeyman, right? Shock horror. So, I'll jump in the chat. We'll say cheerio because I'm going to have to call it a night. Take these headphones off. Actually. So, who have we got in the chat? Sent some. Fantastic. Mark Letizier. Trevor Sinclair. Yeah, Mark Letizier, he was actually on the he was on the radio, but on the Richie Allen show. I've not listened to it all, but I kind of thought, I wonder if Mark would go as much of a stretch to speak to me. Because do you know what? Growing up watching the Premier League, man, Mark Letizier, wow. I'm pretty sure every goal he scored was a beautiful goal. As soon as he hit it, volley, half volley. And it was, I mean, growing up, I always remember Mark Letizier as one of the best strikers in Premier League history. And I can remember one of his goals now. I'm sure it was for Southampton. And it was a absolute peach. I can see it now. I'm sure it was on the half volley. What a cracking goal, man. So if I could get a chance to speak to Matt, I would be starstruck. So it's maybe not a good idea. He seems quite a genuine fella. Not that I can put any weight behind anything. You take all these characters with a pinch of salt, but I don't think we've anything to worry about with Matt. I think he's a good guy, and there's not many of them out there. That's for sure. So maybe Matt, maybe he will. Maybe I'll manage to turn on the charm and get Matt to come on, but yeah, don't hold your breath there, right? So good to see Sensum in the hood. Rich as well, fantastic. Thank you for staying, Rich, who couldn't wait. Well, there you go. You've had it now, Rich. It's over. It's over. So we've went a fair bit, nearly the 4 hours again. Mental, man. Alphabet Cat, good to see you. Frank as well, fantastic. It's a Duck, good to see you. Matt spoke to Unwashed. The juice. Ah! Yeah, well, hey, I guess none of us can be perfect, right? He certainly scored a good few goals. We'll give him that. Good to see It's a Duck in the hood. I was causing a bit of trouble on John Campbell's video. Do you know, anytime I go on there, I feel like I'm a cat amongst the pigeons. And anything I ever say, someone's always there to say something about it. And he had a guy on his channel 2 times in a row. And it's an elderly dude. I don't know who he is. He's promoting all kinds of fucking stuff that, yeah, at your peril, right? So, I mean, if people want to listen to John Campbell, by all means, knock yourself out. But I would be doing it with a big bit of caution. The guy might have came out and said 1 or 2 things, but he's clearly not seen enough. It's not quite got through yet. The true extent. Me personally, I wouldn't trust the guy as far as I could throw him. No chance, man. But he changed his mind. Changed his mind in what sense, though? Changed his mind after it was all coming out. But is continuing to promote medical treatment. When John decides that he's seen enough and that none of it needs to be promoted, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt then. But until that point, I would be very cautious. Very cautious. But there was a guy on it promoting some vaccine, if we can call it that. I can't remember what it was about. I never watched the whole video. But for 2 days in a row, he was on and he's in a room and it's got, I can only describe it as a child's bed. And it simply caught my attention. So I put the comment, what's with the kid's bed? And people were like losing their mind, basically. Saying, oh, what are you trying to say? It's suspicious. And I never even implemented any suspicion whatsoever. They did, not me. I only marked the observation that the guy has a kid's bed behind him. I simply pointed it out. And people lost their mind. And I feel like a wee bit, I don't know, it's you could call it trolling maybe. But, I mean, hey, I'm not a medical expert. Nothing like it. I knew to give it a wide berth. Me, man. A nobody. A nothing. hopeless, useless, white straight male from Elgin knew to give it as wide a berth as you possibly could fucking imagine. Yet Nurse Campbell promoted it. I'm sorry, but it was too late to change his fucking mind. The damage was done. And I don't know how these people, like in particular Mr. Campbell, are going to sleep at fucking night. Because with every day that goes by now, more and more pressure, more and more guilt. You can see it. You can hear it. You can fucking smell it. It is weighing heavy on these people's minds, man. And now they're scrambling to try and get back a wee bit of decency. Now, people can forgive him. That's fair enough. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. But I will not be taking any advice from any of these entities who done a U-turn. Too little, too late. We knew. Before they even rolled the juice out, we knew. So I don't know, I reckon, and I hate to say it, but I reckon people like John Campbell are going to seriously struggle. And he will be trying his utmost to get back into, let's say, the good books. But it would appear that he's continuing to promote different medical treatments. So make of that what you like. I guess, yeah, he is a nurse after all, right? And I get a bit annoyed because people try and give me a hard time. No, he's okay. He's all right. He's a good guy now. Don't fall for it. Don't, man. Don't fall for it. And I know my brother, my English brother, Sensum, is a big fan of John as well. I know Sensum likes him, right? Sensum gets like similar to me. Gets a bit angry because, yeah, for reasons like I just said, we knew about it, man. We could see it. And we're not even eBay nurses like Mr. John Nurse Campbell, the YouTube doctor, who promoted the juice on the BBC. Did we just let that? No, we let that slide now. Yeah, okay. You can let it slide. I won't be. I can maybe to an extent forgive, but I will not forget. No way. No chance. Never. Never, ever, ever, God granted, will I forget what these fuckers done. No way, man. No matter how much time passes, how much water goes under the bridge, they will not get away with it. Not a hope. So John, yeah, he's one of my favourites. And of course, when it comes to medical information, if you want to know the score, go to the WHO. Hooray! A super duper organization that can show you the way. Yeah, and refer you to people like, I don't know, John Campbell? Yeah, maybe they wouldn't refer you to him now. Do you know, people mentioned about maybe John pushing back against it as well. No, I'm afraid not. Again, going back to what I said at the very start, if you get in the way, they take you out. If you step on the toe of Big Pharma, you will not breathe again. Look at what they done to Brandy Vaughan. She knew they were going to do it, and they done it. Because she was getting in the way. And she was pretty much a nobody. So if you think John is one of us, you might want to think again. But, hey, that's up to you, right? I can only make decisions for myself. In fact, I can't even do that. I can't even forget it. I can't even do that. I'm hopeless, right? Useless. But hey, we can only try. So good to see the beautiful Justine, the mother of the group. Fantastic. I hope you're doing better with your eye. I hope it's doing better. I was thinking about that the other day. I get issues with my eyes myself. It's never great, but hey, forget about that. We'll get into that another day. I hope you're doing well, Justine. Great to see you. Alphabet Cat, fantastic. It's a duck as well. Great stuff. Our English brother sent some. John Campbell's #1 fan. Yeah, I think me and Sensum are battling it out for #1. I'm gonna have to stop trolling on his channel. Or people will start reporting me. Oh, we hate him. They'll hate me. Yeah, so maybe, hey, I like to be the devil's advocate as well. And of course, I don't troll too far. And all I put was a simple comment, and people freaked out. But there you go. That's the world we're in, right? You can't have an opinion anymore that's different. No, that would be conspiratorial. Of course, we'll go with that. So what I'll do is I'll find a tune. Hopefully I'll be back on either Friday or Sunday. Failing that, Monday, right? So you get the gist of it. What will it be? I'm unsure at the moment. If anything pops up that I feel I want to cover, I might be back sooner than previously thought. Shock horror. So, thanks again to everyone. Much appreciated. And thank you to Rags as well for the super chat. We don't get many, shock horror, but I am very grateful. So, thank you, Ragnar. It is the only... I'm just making sure. Yeah, thank you, Rags, top man, our Irish brother. And thanks for everyone's time. It's been a pleasure. I'll continue to enjoy my holiday, hopefully. No rest for the wicked, right? So, what can I say? So, do not live in fear, not for one split second. And like I always say, no matter what, no matter where, do not comply. And that is about it. Bye-bye.
Don't nobody know my troubles but God. Don't nobody know my troubles but God. Oh Lord, they know trouble so high. Oh Lord, they know trouble so high. Don't nobody know my troubles but God. Don't nobody know my troubles but God. Yes, I went down the other day. My soul was a happy because she don't me. I went down the
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again.